What is up, YouTube? My name is Alex. Welcome back to the Lifting Nomad. In today's video, I want to talk about how much you can actually eat if you have bad genetics. Now, for me, as someone who's always been overweight throughout my life, my family's always been overweight. None of us are really like jacked. You know, there's a lot of those people and like some of those families who are just like naturally very vascular, naturally really athletic, really tall, always in shape sort of people. I was not one of those persons. So for me to become absolutely shredded, it took a lot of dieting and a lot of low calorie days. So I want to talk about how much actually I can eat as someone who has bad genetics that are not conducive to being fit. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So before I get into this, I do want to preface this by saying that every single person on this planet has a different genetic set point and a different genetic starting point of how fit they can get throughout their progression, throughout their life, throughout their fitness career. And really, is it a different experience for every single person? And what I mean by that is, let's say you put every single person on the planet, 8, 9 billion, whatever we are now, we put us all in the same gym, in the same city, eating the same foods, doing the same workout regime. And you did that over, let's say, a 6-month time frame. You would have drastically different results. From one person at the far end of the spectrum would be absolutely shredded, completely to the gills, veins coming out of everywhere, in amazing shape. And on the other end of the spectrum, you would have people who had made zero progress on those lifts, just simply were not able to progress in the gym. Now, this comes down to a variety of factors, but all things being equal, nutrition, training, intensity, sleep, recovery, all of these things go into making an overall physique and staying in shape. But the reality is people have different receptions and different predispositions to certain muscle groups, certain responses to different types of exercises, and certain genetic limits. The reality is not everyone on the planet can ever hit a 405 bench or a 315 bench without taking steroids. It is just a matter of fact that some people have different genetic dispositions. It's the same way that you have people in the world who are 7 feet tall, and you also have people in the world who are 5 feet tall. It is just the way we are built up, and everyone is very, very different. So with that being said, why I'm talking about this is I just saw a video on Instagram recently of a fitness influencer. I actually don't remember who it was. There's a ton of people on my feed in my For You page that are pretty much all just either hot girls or fitness influencers. And this particular one was a little bit of both. She was, I would say, like 5'1", very, very small girl, probably like 120, 130 pounds. And in this video, she actually talks about how she's eating 3,000 calories a day to maintain her current physique, while working out on a 4-day, like full body split, I think 2 leg days and then 2 upper body days, and then cardio just kind of sprinkled in throughout the week. Now this kind of got me thinking a little bit as someone who has to work incredibly hard and long in the gym in order to burn that amount of calories. So for reference, for me right now, this is my first time cutting down in a little while. I was just living in South America for 5 months, and I was, just enjoying the food, enjoying a little bit of a mental break from dieting, and just enjoying my training for the first time in a while, which was nice. So giving myself a break from being in a deficit for so long, from being shredded, and really just enjoying food and enjoying life a little bit more than I had been in the past. Now that being said, I was probably eating, I would say, 2,500 to 3,000 calories. And the thing with this is I was gaining, like, I would say 1 and a bit pounds a month. I gained over that whole time about 10 pounds the whole time I was down there. So 5-ish months, 10 pounds, 2 pounds a month, let's say. But the caveat with that is, let's say I was eating 2,500 to 3,000 calories. I was still working out like 5 or 6 days a week and averaging, I've checked like my Apple Watch steps over the last 6 months. I've been averaging like 14,000 steps a day, which is a lot. And that is a lot of just non-activity exercise thermogenesis, right? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Just essentially the amount of calories you burn throughout the day just by living and doing things and walking around and existing. So for me to still be gaining weight despite all that activity, it's definitely a signal that my body and my metabolism is not as good as other people's. Now, to get even more specific on this, I'll show some clips of when I was my most shredded here. I think probably the leanest I ever got in terms of actual muscle density and like definition in my body, I was around 155 pounds. Now keep in mind, I'm 5'11", so I'm not like a small person. I'm not tall by any stretch of the imagination, but 155 at 5'11" is what most people would consider like pretty skinny or pretty lean. And my body fat here, I would say, is like high single digits, maybe 10% or so. Like I had really good vascularity across my shoulders, my chest, my ab definition was pretty solid. I generally can't get the bottom two abs to come out because I do have quite a bit of loose skin from when I was like 215, 220. Just the kind of way it works, I'm always gonna have a little bit of that visceral fat around my lower midsection. I'm comfortable with it. It's not something I'm embarrassed about, but it's just the reality of me never having like a true 8-pack because of that skin. Now, with that being said, when I was this lean, to give you like, you know, a real world example, I was doing like MyFitnessPal and food scaling and really weighing everything that goes into making a physique like that. I was down to the gram. I was not drinking alcohol at this time. I was sleeping like 8 to 9 hours a day. I would say this is probably the most healthy I've ever been in my life. Like my sleep was perfect. I was working out 6 days a week. I was doing cardio 7 days a week. I was doing a 6-day PPL split, so push pull legs. And then I was doing 45 minutes on the bike every single day. During this time as well, it was summer, so which was nice enough to be able to do the 45 minutes outside. During this time frame, I biked like over 1,000 kilometers, which for my American friends, like 1.6, like I don't know, 600 miles or so. I'm not too good at the conversion back the other way. But the point of this being a ton of exercise every single day without fail. This was no cheat meals, this was no alcohol, this was really, really dialed in. Now, the caveat with all this, I was eating, I would say like 1,700 calories a day on average. And how I know this is I had a Google sheet that I was tracking throughout this entire time frame, and I was actually like MyFitnessPal, food scale down to the actual gram. And if anyone comes at me with like, oh, you weren't measuring your olive oil, that kind of stuff. I didn't use any oil. This was all just like spray, like the non-stick spray that has like 5 to 10 calories, which I even counted for in my MyFitnessPal. I was dialed in as much as you possibly can within reason. Obviously, like some cuts of chicken breasts are gonna be a little bit fattier than others. There's no real way for you to measure the difference there. So things like that were out of my control, I couldn't really deal with. But over time, I assumed they were just averaging out. So for me to get this lean, I had to eat like 1,700 calories. Now, let's move to fast forward to today. The reason I took that diet break as well for 5 to 6 months was ideally to reset some of my metabolism, get some of my testosterone back up, and from being in a deficit for so long, it definitely does take a hit on your hormones. And I wanted to get back to a place where my body was good to build muscle and good to go with that. So I came back to Toronto. I'm now back in Canada, where it's so cold in May, which is fun. And I started dieting again. So measuring my calories, I started out at 2,000 calories. And again, now I'm really, really diligent about my 6-day-a-week PPL, doing cardio every single day. Right now I'm doing 30 or 45 minutes, depending on how much time I have in the morning. I'm going at like 5 a.m. before work. So sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get like the full 45 in. Either way, my mandatories right now are 6-day PPL, 15,000 steps every single day. And I started at 2,000 calories. Did that for 2 weeks, and my scale did not move. I was still in like the high 160s, around 170, which for me was kind of surprising. I was expecting that to be enough to get the needle moving, but it wasn't. So I cut down 1,900, 1,800, and now I'm back to that spot of 1,700 calories a day. And unfortunately, I'm still only losing like 1.5 pounds a week, maybe a pound. And that's just the reality of the situation. So with all things considered, kind of tying this together to the beginning, if you have bad genetics, the amount of calories you can eat is shockingly low. Like realistically, someone my size and my exercise level should be able to eat 2,200, 2,300 and still be in a deficit and losing weight. For me, unfortunately, it's just not the case. It's not possible. I don't lose weight at that amount. When I was doing this first bulk, like I showed earlier, where I was actually my most shredded, that was a bulk for me and I was eating like 2,400 calories a day. It is just the unfortunate reality of being someone who has the genetic buildup that is not meant to be shredded. I have to go against everything that is right with me. And in terms of like training intensity, you know, I went from benching, like when I first started working out a few years ago, I could bench like maybe 85 pounds, maybe 90 pounds. Now I've hit like 235 at, again, like 155 pounds, which ratio wise is pretty good. I'm not saying I'm a power lifter, but the reality is for someone like me and a lot of people out there, it's not easy to become like super in shape. And I know Instagram will kind of mislead you into thinking that everyone is out there benching 2, 3, 4, 5 plates. And the reality is this mostly anything like, you know, elite genetics, not taking away from their hard work, but there's a ton of people working hard. The reality is some people just gravitate naturally to being extremely good at lifting weights. The same reason that I don't know, LeBron James or Tom Brady or Connor McDavid, like these people are put on this planet for that reason. That is their gift. That is what they're good at. That is what their body is meant for. At the same time, you know, I've been fortunate enough to have a full head of hair. I'm in my late 20s. It hasn't even budged. I don't think I've lost a single hair here. I'm relatively smart, and I've been fortunate enough to grow up in, like, you know, a good place. So the reality is some people, you know, you can't really have it all. So what this comes down to is when you're thinking about how much food you can eat, you may just have to eat less. And it's a tough pill to swallow, especially if you're working hard, you're doing the cardio, you're in the gym, you're lifting with intensity, you're doing progressive overload, you're doing all the right things, you're eating enough protein, you're getting enough sleep, and you're still not seeing progress. You may just need to eat less. And I know it's tough for a lot of people out there, but for me, being someone in the fitness industry and being in shape the last few years, coming from a body that is not meant to be, I've gone through this and seen it from the other end. And I think it's important to have this transparency on social media where people are able to see the truth behind it. You know, it's not just, there's so many fake natties and so much PED abuse going on in the fitness industry. And again, nothing against it. I'm in tech, recreational drugs are not that uncommon, but it's just unfortunate how many people are like lying and saying they're natural and saying they're eating this many food. Candidly, I think this small girl who's eating 3,000 calories at 5'1", 120 and not gaining weight, I think it's kind of fugazi. Just because, you know, in my experience from where I'm sitting, it's just too much of a gap. That's almost double the amount of food I'm eating, and I have 40, 50 pounds on her. My total is like close to 1,000. Again, not a power lifter, but like fairly decent. My sleep's good, my intensity is good, so I just can't really see the 1,300 calorie variance being a fair, legitimate thing. Maybe it is, maybe she's an alien and you know, an elite species. There's gonna be people like, I don't know, I think DK Metcalf is a perfect example of like just a specimen of a human being who, you know, no matter how hard I work, no matter how much I train for this, I will never look like that, right? So that's pretty much gonna be the video. I hope this was useful to understand how much you can actually eat if you have bad genetics. And this is kind of just a reality of it. And I hope this was somewhat eye-opening to the fact that you can get in shape, you can look amazing, you can have good strength gains, but you may have to eat less than other people are while making those same gains. And it is a sad reality, but that is the world we live in. So hopefully this was useful. If it was, feel free to leave a like and a comment in the section below. Always helps the algorithm. But that's gonna be the video. As always, my name is Alex. Welcome back to Lifting Nomad. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.